What's up, everyone? It's the Autistic Scyther here, and well, we've ranked grass type starters for my least favorite to favorite, and I've ranked all the fire type starters from least favorite to favorite. So honestly, there has to be one more group of starters that basically I'd have to basically rank. And no, it's not the winds and waves starters. Although, if you had my guess to what my favorites of those starters are, I'd have to say Gecqua at number 3, Sprout at number 2, and Pombon at number 1. But in this case, I'm talking about the water type starters. Yeah. When it comes down to it, water type starters have been a mixed bag for me. Considering how the grass type and fire type have had some banger starter choices, like for the past 9 generations, which, especially considering how Sprout and Pombon are, really says a lot. But even with that, water type has had some interesting starters that I've kind of either come around to or I say are just A tier or S tier at best. That being said, makes you wonder which ones are where they would stand on my own personal ranking. And that being said, that's what this list is all about. So, that being said, it's time to count down my top for my video ranking every water type starter from my least favorite to my favorite. And honestly, I'm taking everything into account. Design, battle capabilities, gameplay, lore, you name it, we got it. So, that being said, without further ado, let's get started. Starting off first at number 9, we have the Froakie line. Alright, when it comes down to Kalos, one thing is for certain. Kalos' starters are kind of, when you think about it, hit or miss. I mean, when it comes down to the Chespin line, they were basically pretty amazing. I mean, Chespin was pretty funny in the anime, and Chesnaught is a heavy hitter, like a full-on heavy hitter, to the point that it could flip over a tanker truck. And then you have the Fennekin line, which are just kind of amazing, and a nice little reprieve from the fact that the previous 3 fire-type starters from the previous 3 generations were all firefighting, with it being fire psychic. And it goes even further when you consider Mega Delphox being a witch riding on a broom. However, that being said, the Froakie line is kind of interesting to say the least. As not only is Froakie not only are this entire line frogs, which, again, the fact that Kalos is based on France, and you have the water type starter is a frog, which stereotype when you think of stereotype much. But even with that, it kind of fits with the overall theming of all the starters being based on RPG classes. And the fact that they're all based on rogues, ninjas, and assassins, or even thieves when you think about it. Thieves, rogues, ninjas, and assassins. It basically fit the entire thing quite well. I mean, Froakie is just an adorable little frog, which really, again, it basically has that going for it. I mean, the X and Y anime really does show this sort of thing with Froakie by allowing it to use its frubbles as a mask, which definitely kind of fits the entire thing you would think for a thief or a rogue. Like mask or a bandana, which fits for like a thief or a rogue. Think Locke from Final Fantasy VI or Bulk from the Teleus duology of Fire Emblem. And really says a lot. Then you have Frogadier, which basically looks sleek, amazing, and has the whole using frubbles as projectiles thing on lock. And then you have Greninja, which turns into a full-on ninja frog. So much that it was a shoo-in to be in Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS and Wii U as a playable character. I mean, the reveal trailer for it, holy cheese, that just looks awesome. Just full-on ninja style. But even with that, yeah, there's still a lot of aspects to it. It's the fact that it becomes a water dark type to the point that it became a competitive staple for the longest time due to that typing, and Protean really, he says a lot. Its full stable of moves and its appearance in the XY anime, especially when you consider the Astra Ninja Baden phenomenon that really swept the anime and how awesome it is, really does say a lot. And it kind of adds to that as well. That being said, you're possibly wondering why it's so low. And, well, that's just about it. That's just it. Greninja got too popular. I mean, it got so popular that it oversaturated itself. So basically, over time, I began to distance myself less and less because of it. And less and less from it because it got so popular. And honestly, I really don't want to distance myself because of people liking it as a starter. Or a Pokemon in general. But, honestly, when you think about it, I think it's because of, I think it might be because I'm autistic, and more often than not, I kind of tend to march to the beat of my own drum and, distance myself from things that are kind of popular or trendy. Because honestly, I mean, heck, that's why I love Fire Emblem Fates. Because it's not popular. And I'm saying this, and there are a lot of people that like Fates, so yeah, there's that. Plus, Mega Greninja kinda looks like an upside down Apache helicopter, and just why? Just why? Seriously. I mean, Chestnut and Delphox were so... Mega Chestnut and Mega Delphox were so peak. Just... Why is Mega Greninja the way it is? Why? Moving on next at number 8, we have the Sobble line. Alright, this one is undoubtedly a hot take, which honestly says a lot because when it comes down to the Sobble line as a whole, everyone and their mother tended to hate on it because it just looked so, well, unsettling or humanoid, which honestly does say a lot. But honestly, I have to say, so, the Sabo line actually looks pretty good. And that's saying a lot considering the Score Bunny and Grookey line have also gotten that same amount of hate, especially from their final evolutions. But even with that, there's always something about the Galar starters I'm going to like. And with Sabo, it's just an adorable little lizard who more or less tends to tear up at the drop of a hat. Again, heck, the Journeys anime definitely showed this perfectly, as they had Ghost Sabo who tend to cry a lot, to the point that it makes everyone else cry, and basically showing it in a whole showing it do that. But there are some points that made Sabo kind of endearing. Again, looking up to Jacqueline's Inteleon and wanting it to be an Inteleon itself in the episode Sabo Spies a Stealthy Strategy is, again, kind of one of the few moments that kind of has a positive or impact in terms of Pokemon when it comes to their final evolutions. As well, we've had ones where specific Pokemon wanted to beat their evolutions, like Pikachu wanting to beat Raichu as a Lieutenant Surge's Raichu as a Pikachu, or Meowth wanting to, or Team Rocket's Meowth wanting to kind of outpace Persian and replace Persian on Giovanni's lap. Which is saying a lot once you realize Meowth has evolved into Persian. Yo. That being said, there also are some amazing ones where the final evolved Pokemon or final evolved starter has served as kind of a, well, I guess I'd say inspiration to said starter Pokemon. Again, you have case in point being Paul's Torterra, basically serving as sort of a mentor to Ash's Grottle when it evolved from a Turtwig, or the whole sibling rivalry between Ash's Rowlet and Hal's Decidueye. So basically, Jacqueline's Inteleon serving as somewhat of a stealth mentor, if you pardon the pun, to Ghost Sabo, where it wanted to become an Inteleon all its own, really says a lot. Granted, Drizzile does kinda somewhat take a step back, being basically an emo lizard with like emo fringe. But at some point I have to ask, who hasn't done this when they were a teenager? Heck, in high school I had a goth/emo phase. Granted, it was temporary, but yeah, I had a goth/emo phase. Trust me, I was still looking for my place and I didn't know where I was gonna be, so yeah. But even with that, Inteleon as a whole itself being a secret agent, not only is it an amazing design, being a full-on Gecqua, full-on lizard, but it also adds aspects of a secret agent, kind of adding in the whole James Bond reference. But honestly, its Gigantamax form is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. It uses its tail as a crow's nest, and and it wields a sniper rifle out of water. That is pretty amazing. That being said, while their design is still pretty solid, to say the least, and I don't hate their design, it's just that I tend to use a lot of the other two much more than the Sobble line. And only recently have I used Sobble, but I didn't evolve it, so yeah. I've used Grookey and Scorbunny more, so I tend to have more use with them than Sobble, so that's basically where I'm going with this, folks. I mean, it's weird, but it happens. Moving on next at number 7, we have the Mudkip line. Oh boy, moving on from Galar to Hoenn. And honestly, when it comes down to it, it's very fair to say that the Mudkip and its line in its entirely receives its full flowers no matter what. I mean, it's basically one of the best starters in a Hoenn in any playthrough of a Hoenn game, since not only is it water ground, which is an amazing type combination, but it also basically making it only weak 4 times weak to grass types, while immune to electric type, and super effective to a whole host of types like fire, poison, the aforementioned electric, rock, ground, just all those. But even with that, and heck, even their designs are amazing. Mudkip is just kind of an adorable little goober. Marshtomp is just derpy, but rightfully so. And Swampert is a beast of a creature that basically goes full swole in its mega form. But even with that, the only downside to it is that Swampert's just too good. I mean, granted, I've played through a lot of Hoenn. I mean, while Unova is my favorite, keep in mind Gen 3 was when kind of a tumultuous time for me, since I discovered I was autistic back during Gen 3, and for a time, it was basically seemingly people were trying to get me to stop liking Pokemon in order to make friends, because everyone else was starting to see Pokemon as uncool, so and I didn't want to give it up, so yeah. Basically, I was playing through Gen 3 in secret. But even with that, I've used all 3 of them. More often than not, if I do play through a Hoenn game, it would be using Trico or Torchic. And even with that, Mudkips, if I do use Mudkip, I'm not going to use it all that much. I mean, heck, in my Oraz Professor Oak's challenge, I started with a Mudkip as my starter, which evolved to Swampert, but I didn't bring it to the Elite Four, as well as my Hall of Fame team. Just, that's because Oraz has a lot more Pokemon that really stand out from the crowd, so Swampert kinda fell by the wayside. Plus, let's be real. After hearing the whole "so I heard you like Mudkip's" meme so many times, kinda gets a little annoying. Just have to say it gets annoying. Moving on next at number 6, we have the Piplup line. Oh boy. Yeah. Honestly, when it comes down to it, while Mudkip's kind of the highlight for Hoenn, the next generation Sinnoh is another story. Which, for those that don't already know, while Gen 3 was kind of a tumultuous time where a lot of people wanted me to stop liking Pokemon in order to make friends, I eventually ended up getting back and reinforcing my love of Pokemon when Gen 4 came around. Because everyone else started liking Pokemon again. I don't know what was going on there. But even with that, Gen 4 has some amazing starter Pokemon. If you haven't remembered from my Fire-type starters ranked list, you know that the Chimchar line are pretty much one of the top 2. Which basically says a lot because, honestly, it is one of the best Fire-type starters, bar none. Infernape's basically a Pokemon version of Goku from Dragon Ball Z. And then there's Renegade Platinum, which gave it Iron Fist, which, honestly, is much more of a... which makes it that much more... or God tier than you'd expect. However, in fairness, let's just be real. One of my favorite animals is the penguin. Granted, I also like the elephant as well as the penguin, but in fairness, I love penguins. They're just so adorable. They're both so dapper, looking like they're wearing tuxedos. And I just love seeing penguins. It's just so much. And it really says a lot that the Piplup line are just an entire line of penguins. And then, of course, Piplup is mainly the crux of that, being just a cute and adorable little penguin. Especially during the Diamond and Pearl anime, as Dawn's Piplup is just not only so adorable, but has a lot of personality within it that adds a bit, and that adds more, that is able to resonate more with me than anything else. I mean, not only does it show its pride that's known for its species, but it has a lot of comedic aspects next to it. Has a lot of range of emotions, like from anger to sadness to happiness. And honestly, the whole cheerleader aspect that Piplup does alongside the rest of Dawn's Pokemon and Dawn herself, whenever they cheer on Ash in his battles, is just kind of adorable to say the least. And then there's Inteleon. Again, if Swampert was basically an intimidating beast, Inteleon just basically said, "Hold my fish sticks," and decided to ramp that up even further, going from Water Ground to the equally as superior Water Steel. Again, one of the best type combinations ever due to Steel's countless amount of resistances. And even with that, and it's basically just a regal brute. I mean, not only is it an Emperor Penguin, but it also adds in aspects of Napoleon Bonaparte, a former French emperor, and who was a former French emperor, and a trident. Yeah, a trident. Plus adding in aspects of King Neptune himself, or Poseidon. You got him. And plus, the fact that its wings can cleave ice flows is just... I do not want to mess with that thing. Let's just be real. I mean, heck, it's so awesome that the difficulty hack, Emerald Imperium, gave Inteleon 2 megas. One a sleek attacker, and the other a defensive juggernaut. Oh man. However, there's always kind of a downside. And that downside is Primplop. Honestly, let's just be real. Primplop just looks ugly to me. I mean, as much as I like penguins, Primplop just doesn't hit as much as the cute adorability of Piplup and the regal intimidating stature of Inteleon. It's just, hi, how are ya? Honestly, I mean, with Drizzile and Marshtomp, I get it, but I get it. It's the awkward middle evolution phase, but at least Drizzile and Marshtomp are much better and have much more to their aspects that make them much more palatable than Primplop. Just, yeah. And if you already hadn't guessed from my ranking ones, I've basically had one where I dog on a middle evolution starter for just being purely ugly. Because grass had Quilladin, and fire my ire turned to Combuskin. But, yeah, as Spider-Man and Family Guy said, everyone gets one. Moving on next at number 5, we have the Squirtle line. Yep! Break out the streamers, one of the Gen 1 Pokemon actually makes it to the number 5 spot. In all seriousness, while I've started with Generation 1, I kind of have a soft spot for the Gen 1 starters. Hence why in each of these rankings, they've all been at around the middle of the list. Which really does say a lot when you think about it. I mean, they're one of the classics. Especially when it comes to the anime, as Squirtle is one of the first water type starters that Ash has always had. Again, Bulbasaur also is that case, and same with Charmander. But in terms of Squirtle, it kind of started a trend of his water type starters not evolving. A trend that was eventually broken by Froakie. Which, again, really says a lot. But that being said, Squirtle does have its own sort of popularity. I mean, not only is it a turtle, but it has a lot of charisma, popularity, and cuteness, and comedic timings that make it stand out. I mean, again, going back to Ash's Squirtle in the anime, he's had a few amounts of comics timing that especially when in conjunction with both Bulbasaur and Charmander, especially as a Charizard, that kind of make it a perfect part of the trio. And don't get me started on MNJ TV's Pokemon Talk, as again, Bulbasaur and Squirtle are just both make the series the way it is. From Bulbasaur just being the kind of voice of reason of the series, to Squirtle just being the full-on wild card. From doing things from talking about tickets to the gun show, as in muscles, to wondering what happened to the floor every season, to things like, I swear to drunk, I'm not God. Or, I swear to drunk, I'm not God. Or things, or even or even the whole mention of Mega Squirtle, or heck, even talking about how his middle name is Danger. I mean, honestly, everything Squirtle does just makes me laugh. Granted, Squirtle's not the best or funniest character in the series. That one just so happens to go to a certain dark type evolution with an interesting relationship with floor tentacles. Oh, we'll get to that soon enough. That being said, even with that, its evolutions are both kind of different. And they definitely deserve their praise as well. I mean, Wartortle, for how ignored it is still pretty amazing. Again, the fact that it's an awkward middle evolution starter aside, like Drizzile and Marshtomp, it adds some form of characterization that makes it much more enjoyable, since it's based on the folklore legend of the Mizugame. And again, the fact that the original Blastoise evolution looked like a grown-up Wartortle, and it looked like Wartortle, but even more grown up, really makes us wonder just, oh, I wish we got that. But even with that, Blastoise, on the other hand, is just, well, one of the few designs that's just flat out god tier. As not only does it have is it known for its 2 water cannons that it allows to shoot high pressure water from them, but it's a bulky tortoise with enough bulk to withstand any hit. And this goes even further with its Mega Evolution and Gigantamax form, as Mega Blastoise takes Blastoise's two cannons on its back and just ramps it and just decides to go one step further by moving those cannons to its arms or its wrists and giving it a huge hulking cannon on its back. That's just awesome. While Gigantamax Blastoise just goes, that's cute. Here, have an entire arsenal's worth of cannons for your trouble. Honestly, when it comes down to it, this line just stands out as one of the best. Again, not one of the full best, as you'll soon see later on, but it has it. Moving on next at number 4, we have Quaxley. Yeah. Again, Paldea is one of the most recent ones, and yeah, I like Scarlet and Violet. Even though I have a Switch 1, it's still pretty much one of the more Paldea has one of the more interesting starters that I've kind of enjoyed. And again, that's really saying a lot with the Winds and Waves starters giving us some very amazing banger designs for their starter Pokemon. I mean, Sprigatito's just kind of ahead of Brout. And while kind of ahead of Brout because it's a cat. And Gecqua seems to be much more. I'm more or less interested in Gecqua than Quaxley. And then we have both Fuecoco and Pompon, who are just head empty friend-shaped entities that I just want to hug. And keep in mind, I'm afraid of dogs, so the fact that I love Pompon really says a lot. All that aside, Quaxley, like I said, Quaxley is one of the more interesting Pokemon. And keep in mind, every time I play through a Paldea title, I've always either ended up starting with Sprigatito or Fuecoco. But that being said, honestly, the reason why I'm starting with I like Quaxley is it's because of Horizons. I mean, Quaxley is one of the best Pokemon in the series due to Dot's Quaxley. As not only is it kind of her assistant during her live streams, seems as Needle Thing, but it also served as a way to get Dot to come out of her shell. And again, says a lot once you realize the recent generation gave us characters who may very well be on the autism spectrum. I mean, you have Penny, you have Penny from Scarlet and Violet, you have Dot from the Horizons anime, and arguably you even have Liko when you think about it. But even with that, honestly, Quaxley as a whole looks pretty adorable. And while Quaxwell's kind of awkward, being a duck with a slick back hairstyle that looks like gel toothpaste, Quaquaval is honestly, it's one of the more fabulous Pokemon that you'd expect. And plus, it also adds that aspect of being a water fighting type, being based on a dance battler or a capoeirista. And again, the previous capoeirista that we've had, Pokemon that we've had, was Hitmontop. So, yeah, Quaquaval definitely fits that even more so to a T. Notably, I want Hitmontop as a smash fighter over Quaquaval, but that's neither here nor there. But even with that, it's gotten to a point where I want to use the Quaxley line. And it's both a combination of Horizons, the Horizons anime, its entire lore, its typing, the amount of moves it can learn, and even after watching Mikey's, or in this case MJTV's, Let's Play of Pokemon Violet, I want to use Quaquaval for my own vanilla playthrough of Pokemon Violet. Yeah, which really says a lot. And granted, while there are a lot of others that I want to use, like that, Ceruledge, and heck, maybe even things like Cyclizar, Tauros, or Paldean Tauros, or even Iron Shreds, Quaquaval's the main one that I want to use no matter what. Plus, Quaxley got Riz, let's just be real. Seriously, the episode with the Oink alone definitely proves that Quaxley has some riz. Moving on next at number 3, we have Poplio. Honestly, when it comes down to it, Quaxley is not the only one who basically my appreciation has more or less improved thanks to the anime. That also just so happens to go to the water type starter of Alola, Poplio. And honestly, it says a lot. Because when the Alola starters were introduced, I actually liked both Rowlet and Litten. However, when I saw Poplio, I didn't think much of it. And that's because we already had the Seal line and the Spiel line, so I basically just saw it and I was like, really? Another Seal? Another Seal or Sea Lion? Do we really need another one? Yeah, so I was basically kind of burnt out on the Sea Lion Pokemon. Which kind of says a lot, as Seal and Dugong basically need something to make it much more, well, viable or palatable, and, well, you really can't and outshine the glory that is the absolute round god Spiel. You really can't. To quote Josh from Drake and Josh, Spiel is spherical. Spherical. But all that aside, Poplio kinda didn't do it for me at first. However, this kinda changed eventually over time. I mean, not just because of the Sun and Moon anime, by Poplio just being the way it is in the series. I mean, granted, compared to Lana, who is just an absolute gremlin. Seriously, just watch the episode where she mentioned fishing up a Mega Gyarados, only to mention that she was just kidding. That's just gremlin mode right there. Anyway, you gotta admit, Poplio has kind of grown on me as a starter. As while it does start off as a sea lion who more or less blows bubbles from its nose to entertain people, it evolves into Brion, who basically turns into a pop star seal, or pop star sea lion, which is kind of amazing. But then things take a turn for the interesting by allowing it to be, when it reaches its final form, Primarina. Alright, now I know this is the second time I'm mentioning the beta, but honestly, considering how Generation 2 gave us a water type starter that was basically a evolutionary line of sea lions, honestly, the fact that we could have had that as early as Generation 2 kind of makes it wonder what could have been. However, I believe that with the Poplio line, we definitely got that. I mean, not only is Water Fairy a solid type combination, again, not as god tier as Water Steel, or amazing as Water Ground, but Water Fairy definitely allows it to, basically gives it some perfect ammo against Dragon type, aside of just give it Ice Beam or Blizzard. And even with that, honestly, its entire design being based on either a mermaid, a selkie, or even a siren is just amazing. It goes even further once you realize that back during the age of exploration, aka I guess even the age of piracy, people traveling on sea voyages would see manatees and mistake them for mermaids. So the fact that we have a sea lion Pokemon that's basically a mermaid is a perfect little connection of that. Again, wish we got that with Dugong, but yeah, beggars can't be choosers. But yeah, even with that, Primarina just stands above all else. And yeah, no, I know there's gonna be a lot of people that think I'm one of those types of people when I say I like Primarina. I have to say it. I like people from Primarina from a design, anime, and gameplay mindset. From a design, lore, and gameplay. Design, lore, anime, and gameplay standpoint. Not the other type of standpoint. Ya nasties! Yeah. Just get your minds out of the gutter. Out of the gutter. Moving on next at number 2, we have the Totodile line. Shocker! When it comes down to it, Generation 2 has some interesting Pokemon. Again, that really does say a lot once you realize how much the Chikorita line has failed, especially from a gameplay standpoint. And yeah, I don't, which at this point, I don't hate the Chikorita line from a standpoint that it was created more so for girls than anything else. It's not the best in terms of gameplay. And Johto really does more or less have it out for Chikorita as a whole, considering how it's weak to the first 2 gym types in Flying and Bug. And even further once you realize Legend ZA has it out for the entire Chikorita line. And keep in mind, I've played through Legend ZA twice. And I've had a very tough time with Meganium. Because of how lackluster it is from a gameplay standpoint. But even with that, the Totodile line really also kind of suffered in the original Gen 2 game. Naturally, that's because of the fact that water was a special type back then. And Totodile was more or less seen as a physical type. I mean, heck, it starts off as an adorable little crocodile, but then evolves into a full-on Cayman powerhouse. And yes, Feraligatr is a Cayman. Not a crocodile or an alligator, a Cayman. But even with that, when Gen 4 came around, Totodile basically became much more amazing. Not only gaining new moves like Ice Fang and Dragon Claw to utilize in its arsenal, but the physical special split basically allowed it to make use of its physical strikes, of its physical prowess, to essentially deal a lot of damage. I mean, heck, even as a mixed attacker. And honestly, keeping up with the awkward middle evolution in phase, Crocodile kind of looks like a Flintstones character, but even with that, that kind of adds to its charm. It's basically, it looks like, as it fits the whole Unga Bunga style of gameplay that Feraligatr gives us. And speaking of adding to that Unga Bunga style gameplay, I have to mention Mega Feraligatr, which which honestly, I have to say, I really like Mega Feraligatr. I mean, not only is it a water dragon type, but it's a full-on Pokemon who has a kind of like skull flap or skull helmet that flips over that makes it look like Totodile. Basically to catch its foes off, or its prey off guard. Which really does say a lot. And that being said, Pokemon Champions really did deliver an amazing type to Mega Feraligatr, since Dragonise basically turning its normal type moves like Slash, or heck, even moves like Slash or Thrash, and allowing it to gain access, or even Hyper Beam, and turning them into Dragon type attacks, and turning it into the Dragon type. Yeah, honestly, the fact that its formerly normal type stab moves turn into Dragon type stab. Yeah. I'm gonna say I love abilities like this. I mean, heck, I also have to say the case for moves like abilities like Galvanize, or Aerialate, or even Pixelate. And arguably even Refrigerate. So, yeah, says a lot. And heck, even the anime gave Totodile its own sort of iconic standing, as you gotta admit, if it comes down to the Pokemon that is the peak of comedic timing, it's Totodile. Which really does say the least. I mean, heck, it's a Pokemon who is the original Head Empty Mon. Even before Pokemon like Fuecoco and Pombon. So, yeah. And the fact that more often than not, every time Ash sends out Totodile, it just starts doing a little dance. It just really, honestly, it just warms my heart and just makes me laugh. Also, it also started the whole water-type starter being a Casanova thing. Something that Dawn's Piplup and a certain other starter basically kind of take to heart. Really does say a lot. Speaking of that, and of course, with that just leaves us with the number 1 spot. At number 1, we have the Oshawott line. Yep. For those that already don't know, Generation 5 is my favorite generation. Black 2 and White 2 are basically one of my favorite Pokemon games. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Black and White, but Black 2 and White 2 are some of my favorite Pokemon games. And even with that, I've kind of been... The Gen 5 starters are some of my favorites. Granted, the Snivy line is not so much because of the meme, but even with that, all of them are kind of interesting. And the Oshawott line especially, which the fact that it's an otter that is able to fight wielding a scallop, using a scallop as a sword, yeah, honestly, this is where they actually cooked. And this really does say a lot, as Oshawott is just an adorable little otter with freckles. Even with the scallop being the main part of its design, since it just is able to from its body and wield it as a sword. Again, says a lot once you consider it is an otter. But even with that, yeah, the anime really stands as a test of time. As Oshawott as a whole has become a comedic relief for the entire anime. And honestly, this is partly why I love the black and white anime more than other people. It's because not only is Unova and Gen 5 my favorite region and generation, but Oshawott serves as a funny comedic relief from the whole eating, from Oshawott's appetite and how it tends to eat a lot, to basically the comedic situations it gets into, and and honestly, even the fact that Oshawott is willing to simp for any female Pokemon, whether it's Iris's Emolga, a random Purloin that just so happens to be a guy, Meloetta, which basically allows it to get a rivalry with Dawn's Piplup. I mean, heck, even in the death battle between Ash Ketchum and Yugi Moto, it even simps for Silent Magician. Yeah, it's basically a full-on Casanova. And then there's Duat, which honestly looks to be one of the better middle evolution starters, since it's basically an otter that full-on studied the blade as a dual wielding its scout chops like dual swords, which honestly is just amazing. But the big thing is Samurott. Now, would I have wanted Samurott to become water fighting? Yes. However, honestly, you can't escape the fact that pure water Salamence is one of the best things we've ever gotten. I mean, not only does it have the ability to sheath and unsheath its scout chop swords or scimitars from its legs, from its front legs, and wield them as blades, but it gains access to a lot of different moves like Slash, Razor Shell, X Scissor, Mega Horn, Aqua Tail, Water Pulse, Surf, Ice Beam, Aerial Ace, Sacred Sword. Oh my god! Man, that is just so amazing. That being said, it got better. Hisuian Samurott. Yeah. I mean, as much as I like Decidueye and Hisuian Decidueye, honestly, I think Game Freak was cooking with Hisuian Samurott. Not only allowing it to go from a water type pure water honorable samurai to a water dark Ronin. And honestly, not only from its darker scimitars to its more jagged appearance. Oh man, Hisuian Samurott looks sick. Plus, honestly, I don't think we've seen a god tier attack that's much more amazing than Ceaseless Edge. And honestly, Ceaseless Edge is one of the best moves I have ever seen. As not only does it attack its opponent, but it leaves splinters in its opponent that damages it every turn. I mean, well, they didn't do that in Scarlet and Violet. The fact that it's able to leave behind entry hazards, they changed it to leaving behind entry hazards. Yeah, it's fair to say they made Samurott viable. And that's not even with the fact that they changed its hidden ability to Sharpness. An ability that made even Gallade good. Yeah. Honestly, there's so much for that, yeah, honestly, it makes sense that the Oshawott line would be number 1. Alright. That being said, those are every water type starter ranked from least favorite to favorite. Whew! And with that, I can't wait to learn more about the Gen 10 starters and what they're going to become. And maybe I might revisit this at a later date. Who knows? That being said, like, comment, subscribe, join my Patreon if you don't want to. Join my Patreon if you want to. Again, you don't have to pay for a tier, just join as a free. Join my Patreon for free at patreon.com/theautisticcypher. Again, you can join for free, and if you do have the money, you can essentially pay for a tier. Again, not saying you don't have to if you don't want to, because I don't want you going broke over supporting my content. Please, just take care of your own financial situations. If you want to join for free. It's there if you need it. That being said, I'll see you next time when we take a look at my favorite games of the Game Boy Advance. See you then.